Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well today. Well, let's take a look at the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. And this video is just designed to give you an idea of what the International Monetary Fund is. And the IMF, and if you're in the geopolitical, economic discussions, like people throw around the IMF and you're supposed to know all this stuff about it, all about it. And I thought it would just be helpful to create a little video that says this is what it is, so that when you say the IMF, you know what you're talking about, or you can critique the people who you're talking to because maybe they don't know what they're talking about. All right, so here, check out this next slide. All right, well, this is nothing creative. I just jacked a little image off of Jocelyn Blink's course companion, and I'm just going to read through it because I think it's really interesting, and some of the times just gets lost on people as to how things like the IMF actually come into play, and you'll realize that they're put in place for really good reasons. These are not the IMF kind of has this tattered reputation, but they're put in place for really good reasons to try to help out developing nations. So here we go. The IMF was proposed at the Bretton Woods Agreements in 1944 and began the financial dealings in 1947. So the IMF is an organization of 184 countries working to foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, facilitate international trade, promote high employment and sustainable growth, and reduce poverty. Now, I'm sorry, but that sounds like some really fantastic goals. And so the responsibilities of the International Monetary Fund, set out by its articles on agreeing, are promoting international monetary cooperation, facilitating the expansion and balanced growth of international trade, promoting exchange stability, assisting in the establishment of multilateral systems of payment, and making its resources, under adequate safeguards, to members experiencing balance of payments difficulties. Now, come on, folks. This is exactly the kinds of things that policymakers dream of. This is the international world coming together to try to help each other. The IMF uses three practices to meet these objectives. They are surveillance, technical assistance, and financial assistance. The IMF conducts an annual in-depth survey of each of its member countries and their economic performance. They then discuss with the government of the country in question the policies that are best suited for achieving stable exchange rates and economic growth. This is known as surveillance. These reports are normally published to encourage transparency, so they're providing advice and help to any country that is a part of its membership. The IMF offers technical assistance and training to its member countries, usually free of charge, in areas such as fiscal and monetary policy, exchange rate policy, banking, finance, and statistics. And so when member countries are having problems, are facing problems in financing their balance of payments, the IMF, this is really cool, think about this. The IMF can offer financial assistance in the form of loans. And the IMF is funded by a system of quotas where each member country deposits money in with the IMF. And the size of the quota depends on each country's size in economic terms. Sounds nice. The loans are made from these quotas. As a condition of receiving the loan, the IMF demands the implementation of a policy program agreed by the government of the country and the IMF. Support only continues if the policies are effectively carried out. And this is where it gets really complicated. Yeah, great intentions, but it's really difficult politically for developing nations' politicians to necessarily input or to put in place the policies that the IMF would wish that they do. But if they don't put these policies in place, then it can be very difficult for the host country because the IMF might pull its support. So these policies are originally known as structural adjustment policies. Now, in dealings with developing countries, the IMF uses poverty reduction strategy papers, which detail a comprehensive economic, structural, and social policy framework that is to be implemented to promote growth and reduce poverty in the country. That is really cool. Very cool. And really, there is no real argument to be made that free markets in the long run are better. They are. They lead to lower prices, and lower prices help the people who have the least amount of money in the world, which is the developing nations of the world. But to get there can be really painful for those people, and that's where the politics get involved in the economics. So working independently and in partnership with the World Bank, the IMF provides concessional lending through poverty reduction and growth facility and the exogenous shocks facilities and debt relief under the heavily indebted poor countries initiative. which I'm going to talk about in the next video that has to do with the structural adjustment policies. So that's what the IMF does. Those are its policies. It's well intended. It means well. It has created an enormous amount of opportunities for developing nations, but it is pretty politically charged also because it all depends on your perspective. And if you are an agricultural worker in a developing nation and you children have to now pay for school that you can't afford because your country has taken on loans from the International Monetary Fund and the president of your country has to follow those rules in order to continue to receiving the financial help, you really don't care. Like, who cares? My kid now has to go to school or now can't go to school because I have to pay. Do you care about, the long-term growth and economic development of your country? Not really. You care about your children's education, and that creates political problems for politicians in developing nations. All right, my friends, there you go, the IMF. I hope you found this helpful. We'll talk to you in a bit.